guys, and welcome to a new video on Sonal's life. What is this, Sonal? 2 videos in a week? Well, as you can tell from the title, I am picking back off the last one that I did, and that was the AEW and New Japan Forbidden Door review. Now obviously go back and watch that review for everything if you missed it, but it's obviously the co-joint pay-per-view between New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW Pro Wrestling. And also this year we had some wrestlers from Stardom and also CMLL. Now after the show, it was great, but this is a discourse that has been running since the creation of AEW and especially more prominently over the past few years. What is the state of the relationship between AEW and New Japan? So I thought, as I always go about this on social media, but I thought, why not I make a video about it, especially after the prominence of everything that happened at All Elite, the Forbidden Door show, ahead of the G1 coming up. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments complaining like, oh, you're a New Japan fan, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, this is coming from a New Japan fan's perspective. So it might be slightly biased. You might not agree with everything, but I feel like I've given bits and pieces of this like discourse on different things, whether it's on social media, at wrestling_chat, on these videos, and when I appear on True Heel Heat wrestling channel, which you should also subscribe to. So yeah, I'm going to do like a bit more of a cohesive thing, looking at it from my perspective as a New Japan fan, as like I said, you could agree with me, you might not agree, but we're just going to get going. So I'm not going to go over the history of everything that has happened, but for me personally, these issues sort of emanated the first time that All Elite Wrestling was introduced. Now if you remember all those years ago, actually the announcement came when the Elite, so the Bullet Club, the Elite at the time, announced it pretty much, I think, on the day or around the time of Wrestle Kingdom. And they actually introduced it in front of the Tokyo Dome, the prestigious Tokyo Dome, that all of the wrestlers there who were now moving on to All Elite Wrestling, because as you remember, most of these guys, so the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, Cody and all them, were not under full-time New Japan contracts. They were wrestling for Ring of Honor at the time, I believe. So for me, I found that a bit shady. I was like, it's the biggest event of the New Japan calendar, and it is. It's like the WrestleMania for us New Japan fans. To announce something like this and to sort of steer away the excitement that the show had, I thought was pretty sketchy. But again, that was fine. They created it. It was a very interesting idea for me, because I had started my wrestling career watching WWE and then very quickly went on to New Japan. It was only ever then. And I think at this time I wasn't actually deep delving into Tokyo Joshi and DDT, so I knew the two opposites. This company came promising the idea of a middle ground. So yes, we're going to focus on sports entertainment, but it's going to be much more what the people want, with the wrestlers being at the core of it, and the wrestling and the fans. I could start with all my grievances about AEW in terms of their treatment of the wrestlers that they claimed to want to help. At the beginning, they signed a lot of independent wrestlers, guys that I knew, guys and girls that I knew from companies like Bar Wrestling and things like that, and obviously promised are going to have a platform to shine. Now we have seen pretty much a lot of those more underrated names leave AEW because they weren't given the opportunities I guess they thought they would get. Now, while I'm not going to discuss that because that is a discourse for AEW fans and maybe for another video, the problem from that came with the signing of big stars. Over the years, AEW, and is undoubtedly true, has one of the strongest rosters, especially in terms of the main card. They have some of the biggest names in the industry. That's where we link into New Japan. So it's inevitable, you know, you have a company that offers an alternative based in America, which is very helpful because if anyone knows, the travel time between, I guess, anywhere, whether it's America and Japan, England and Japan, Australia and Japan, I'm just saying like where the predominant wrestlers are from, it's a very long travel time. However, I did not expect the extent to the wrestlers who would leave New Japan after their contract ran up and went to AEW. Now, I'm gonna bring this by saying there are some exceptions to this. There are some major exceptions. Katsuyori Shibata, he is signed with AEW because New Japan physically will not let him fight or wrestle proper matches due to his injury. Secondly, Aussie Open. Aussie Open for me was, I guess, New Japan's biggest failure. They are two of my favourite guys. I've been watching them for years on the independents, whether it was at big New Japan shows, smaller independent shows, even Tuesday night graps at a pub in Manchester. Their decision to sign with AEW for me was, I think, the smartest and probably the one that I understand the most, because New Japan were not giving them a contract. They had wrestled many big shows, they'd been champions, but due to the state of the economy after COVID, they were not willing to give a contract that Kyle and Dunkzilla needed. And especially at a time where Dunkzilla had got injured, and if you're not contracted to New Japan, you're not getting that pay if you're not wrestling. So really, that was the best decision. But aside from that, who have we seen leave? So obviously, all the Elite went. We have not seen or heard from them really since, except obviously we've seen them on odd American shows, and Kenny had a stint as the US champion. Yes, I had to remember that. But we have then since lost Jay White, Will Ospreay, Kazuchika Okada. Just with that is 3 of the top names in New Japan. 3 of the guys on the top of the card. Again, Ospreay, slightly understandable. The travel time from the UK to America is much shorter, and he has a family to take care of. So I understand that. Jay White, again, he moved to America. Makes sense. I feel like maybe he could have continued to do New Japan shows, but I guess that wasn't for him. Obviously, the biggest was Kazuchika Okada. Now, again, this is not me complaining about that, because, hell, they have every right to move on. And as people have said, if they weren't going to sign with AEW, they were going to sign with WWE. It just shows that New Japan was not where they wanted to be. However, my issues come with all of the smaller stuff. The fact that, and I've compared this before, that Tony Khan seems like a kid in a candy shop. He is taking and taking and taking from New Japan and not giving in return. So I'm going to take one example, Jack Perry. He was going through some shit in AEW. I'm not going to discuss that because still I don't get it to this day. So they sent him to New Japan, I guess like a punishment. Similarly to when New Japan sent Suzuki-gun to Pro Wrestling Noah for their, they got banished. Similarly to that, they put Jack Perry in the House of Torture in New Japan. And actually, he pretty much thrived there. As much as we all hate the House of Torture, and this is a common thing right now, Jack Perry really fitted into the faction well and gave some fans really good wrestling matches against the likes of Shota Umino and things like that. And what happened when Jack Perry did a US show, and we saw the heat he was getting, but heat in a good way, AEW took him back. They were like, nope, you've done what you need to do, we'll take him back and use him for our storylines. More recently, the Forbidden Door show. Now, Forbidden Door always, I think in the past, it has been New Japan versus AEW. That has been the core of it. We've had wrestlers facing wrestlers for titles and things like that. This card seemed a lot more unequal, and somebody in my past comment said it. It felt more like an AEW show with New Japan stars rather than a Forbidden Door show. So I'm looking at the card now, and obviously there are some matches that you can't have AEW versus New Japan. For example, the women's matches. So here we've got, let's see. So we had, we did have some AEW versus New Japan. We saw, obviously Jon Moxley faced Tetsuya Naito. Shingo Takagi faced Bryan Danielson. Zack Sabre Jr. faced Orange Cassidy. In the pre-show, Los Ingobernables de Japón faced the team of Mystico and the Lucha Bros. And then in the first match, we saw Tomohiro Ishii team with Kyle O'Reilly, and then TMDK in the 4-way match. Seems okay, but aside from that, there was a severe lack of big stakes New Japan stuff. So, why did we not have TMDK facing the AEW tag champions? Why is this a thing? Why in the 6-man tag match, which had like Jericho, Shibata, Samoa Joe and Hook and that, was there only one presence from a New Japan wrestler, and that was Jeff Cobb, who technically should have had his own title match because he is the New Japan Television Champion. Why was there a special singles match with one CMLL and one AEW, so Hechicero and MJF? Why could you not have inserted a New Japan guy for a triple threat? Why on the TNT Championship ladder match, which had 6 competitors, was there only one New Japan guy, and that was ELP? Could you not have added another guy? So then you could have had an equal amount. Similarly, when we saw a trios match, so Nick and Matt Jackson with Okada facing the Acclaimed and Hiroshi Tanahashi, why was there only one member of the New Japan roster in it? And obviously, most importantly, on the main event, why was it Swerve Strickland versus Ospreay? Again, I'm not going to doubt the match. The match was phenomenal. As many have said, probably match of the year, or one of them at least. But why on a show that is being billed as Forbidden Door, a battle between two companies, is the main show being main evented by two AEW stars? I don't care that Ospreay used to be New Japan, he's not anymore. Leading into this show, there was a lot of grievances with Moxley being champion, and the New Japan stars were showcasing their disdain. They were like, New Japan needs to come up on top. Jeff Cobb specifically was challenging all of these guys. So where was any of this animosity there? Shota Umino was one of the biggest people to complain about this. He wasn't even included on the show. Aside from Tsuji, none of the the 3 or 4 Reiwa Musketeers were there. It felt that if I was a casual fan who didn't know anything about Forbidden Door and I turned it on, I wouldn't know that you were doing New Japan versus AEW. Now again, a lot of people put this criticism down to the fact that there are not many big stars in New Japan. This is a different story for a different day. We all know that New Japan is struggling at the moment with its main event card, especially as we've seen the top names go. However, as I will speak about when we talk about the G1 preview later on, in another video by the way, New Japan is trying, it's just being a lot slower. Just because you've got a lack of main stars, don't just completely forget, I guess, about the concept of Forbidden Door just to keep getting match after match. If you're going to do that, scrap the idea of Forbidden Door. Change the name and just have it as a coalition of all the companies involved. Because as I said before, it's no longer just AEW and New Japan. We have Stardom, we have Ring of Honor, we have CMLL. So create a show similar to All Together in Japan, which was New Japan, DDT and Noah, that celebrates all of the companies, rather than Forbidden Door, which AEW made it seem like it was opening up the door to these amazing matches. Which again, in the first 2 it was. We were seeing bouts we never thought we'd see again. And I'm not going to include like the upset that Jay White wasn't there, because I understand that there is technicalities around why he left New Japan, like the kick out of New Japan match, which mean he couldn't. But yeah, I feel like Forbidden Door really showcased the inequality. And if you think about it also, out of those matches, how many New Japan guys actually won? Yes, Tetsuya Naito did. Yes, Zack Sabre Jr. won, but let's see. Shingo Takagi lost. ELP didn't win, although he did have an amazing spot. The Shacho, the president, Tanahashi, got pinned. Jeff Cobb didn't get the pin. He was on the losing team. LIJ picked up the loss. That's just my take on the Forbidden Door show. Obviously, like I said, this is coming from a New Japan fan standpoint, and I know that everyone's going to have different ideas. Just for me, over the past few years, this relationship has seemed very uneven. Yes, we have got Wrestling Dynasty coming up, so that's been announced the day after Wrestle Kingdom, so it's going to be a joint show between AEW and New Japan. But I still need to see more from AEW's side. We have got New Japan stars making the trip over to AEW to make appearances. Give us more guys coming to big New Japan shows. Again, I don't know whether it was a New Japan decision or AEW decision to not have anyone in the G1 from the company aside from Takeshita. But I really think that we need to push it. We need to have more guys moving from each side. We love seeing all the New Japan guys in AEW. It means I watch the show. But let's see them in Japan, because I can promise you there are some big names. Bryan Danielson. Quite a few. I'm not going to list them all because I'll forget. Any of the Elite even would have great reactions in Japan. So I have criticised AEW in the past. And I'm not saying this is not just a bashing AEW, because they have done so much good. They have given so many smaller, underrated names a chance to shine. And they have given New Japan guys the chance to earn a proper living in an environment that is much easier to access for them. However, as a New Japan fan, it does hurt my heart seeing it. Like, we went back to a group of 20 for the G1. While everyone loves it, is it just because we've got no guys? I want to see the balance shift a bit more. I want to see New Japan showcase their dominance. And maybe this will happen at Wrestle Dynasty, but I feel like it's been too long. So that was my video on it all. This is coming from a New Japan fan. You might think I'm being wholly biased, and I am, because although I'm a journalist, I'm not a wrestling journalist. I'm just a content creator. But I just want to see something better from both companies. I want to see them both benefit from this partnership. And you just let me know what you think of it. What do you think of Forbidden Door and the equality in the companies? What do you think about the relationship since it started? Let me know on social media at wrestling_chat. Let me know in the comments. Again, make sure to hit subscribe, because we are coming up to the G1, which is obviously the biggest time of the New Japan calendar. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you soon. Bye!